And get started with the recording. Very good. That's right at 10:30. So we're going to dive in. We've got a lot to cover. Good morning. Thank you so much to everyone for joining today's conversation. Just a quick note again that today's webinar is currently being recorded, and that link, along with the slides, will be shared with all who registered. We've got another school year wrapping up. It's hard to believe. And many schools are already preparing to shift gears to feed kids over the summer. We also know this fall will bring exciting new opportunities with the inaugural school year of universal free school meals in New York. So we're thrilled for this historic win for our state schools and families and how it's brought greater visibility to the value of child nutrition programs for safeguarding food security. Next slide. So we've got a packed agenda planned for you today. We're going to start off with some new data on the state of hunger here in New York and why schools are increasingly vital partners to connect families with nutrition resources. After that, we'll offer some action steps for schools regarding universal meals and point you to new guidance and resources available from the New York State Education Department. Next, we're going to hear from Rachel Viens, Director of Food and Nutrition Services at Syracuse City School District. And Rachel is going to share her perspective as a district that's been offering free meals for all students for many years and how this has shaped her school meal operations. And lastly, our team of specialists will cover strategies to maximize the historic investment in universal meals by strengthening programs like school breakfast, after school meals, summer nutrition, and SNAP. I'm Francesca DeGiorgio and I work on school meals, so I'll be covering those sections. And I'm going to have each of my colleagues introduce themselves as we move through the different program areas. And just know that we're going to have everyone's contact information listed at the end of the deck. So before we dive in, I will just share a brief overview of who we are at Hunger Solutions New York for those we haven't worked with yet. Next slide, please. Perfect. So we are a statewide anti-hunger organization based out of Albany, New York, and we're focused on raising awareness of hunger and maximizing the federal nutrition programs you see on this slide here. Our small, nimble team works across these programs to increase participation through statewide outreach and individual technical assistance. We're also advocates of policies and funding to expand the reach of the federal nutrition programs. And most recently, we co-led the 350 organizations strong Healthy School Meals for All New York Kids Coalition. The passage of universal meals for this upcoming 25-26 school year represents an extraordinary step forward for New York schools and families, as it's going to remove the barrier of cost to receive school breakfast and lunch for all. And we know that the federal nutrition programs, including school meals, have always been an effective tool to safeguard children from hunger. But new data on the state of hunger underscores why these programs are truly more vital than ever. Next slide, please. So a new report from the New York Health Foundation shows that hunger in New York reached its highest point in 5 years back in October of 2024. This report also found that families with children are feeling the greatest impact. Hunger for these households is 1.5 times higher compared to households without children. And we can see this disparity illustrated in the figure on the right, which compares hunger between these two groups over 5 years. In this data, it's not likely news to schools, as it's illustrating what many of you are seeing on the ground in communities across the state. And to this point, schools are really best positioned to spread the word about available nutrition resources to families. Next slide, please. We know that over the last couple of years, especially, schools have taken on wider responsibilities for helping students and families. And our team knows this because we work closely with statewide organizations for school leaders like superintendents, board members, and school administrators who report that more than ever, families look to schools to fulfill basic needs beyond academics. So through the wide range of services that you provide, from healthcare screenings to backpack programs, schools are especially connected to those low-income families. And therefore, you're strategically positioned to share information about the federal nutrition programs with this group. As trusted messengers, you're also already experts at engaging the families in your districts. And I just want to underscore that schools are also frontline workers as operators of the federal meal programs. Most schools operate the national school breakfast and lunch programs, and many also operate summer meals, after school meals, snacks, and more. And as operators of these programs, not only are schools trusted messengers to families, but they're also invested in strengthening and expanding the reach of these programs in defense of hunger in communities. Next slide, please. So, with universal meals taking effect in the upcoming 25-26 school year, schools can get ahead by reviewing new guidance available from the New York State Education Department. Today, we're going to provide a brief overview of this guidance and direct you to available resources from NYSED. The final state budget enacted last month changed education law to create the Universal Free School Meals Program. And it is so exciting to see this officially in writing and dig into what's actually included. So starting in the 25-26 school year, this law requires that all New York State school food authorities, or SFAs, including public, private, and non-public schools, participating in the federal school lunch and or breakfast program must provide reimbursable meals at no cost to all students. SFAs participating in the Universal Meals Program will receive the free reimbursement rate for all meals served. So that total reimbursement for each meal claimed will be equal to the free rate. Schools will get that full reimbursement and kids will get meals without having to pay. For schools participating in the Universal Meals Program, the law also outlines the following requirements. Schools must maximize federal reimbursements by operating a federal provision. If eligible, schools will be required to participate in the Federal Community Eligibility Provision, or CEP. The good news is that the majority of schools eligible are already through that door and participating. This is likely not news to a lot of folks on this call. But those who are not eligible for CEP must participate in Provision 2. I'm not going to dig into this too much, but in broad strokes, Provision 2 is another federal provision that allows schools to offer free meals to all their kids. And schools moving into Provision 2 will start a base year for that program in the upcoming 25-26 school year. And you'll need to apply through NYSED and have a close partnership with their team during that first base year. And we're going to get into that a little bit more in the next slide. But for now, another requirement is that schools will also need to maximize the number of children automatically eligible for free school meals. Schools need to conduct data matching to find children eligible for free school meals without an application. And this process is called the direct certification matching process. The Universal School Meals Law requires schools to conduct this matching process at least 3 times a year, at the start of the school year, in December or January, and again in April each school year. And again, the good news here is that most schools are already conducting direct certification regularly. Just as a reminder for newer folks, students who are eligible for free meals without an application include students living in households participating in SNAP, or in certain cases, Medicaid. And then also those who are foster, homeless, migrant, runaway, or participating in Head Start or Even Start programs. To learn more about strategies to improve direct certification, you can check out our tip sheet that we've developed in collaboration with NYSED and other school food service directors. And we can pop that link in the chat for you. Lastly, schools will be required to promote SNAP to families. SNAP outreach is something that a lot of schools have elected to do over the years in order to improve direct certification. And the goal of this requirement is to ensure all eligible children are enrolled in SNAP and thereby automatically certified as free eligible. So just to connect the dots back to the previous requirement around CEP, capturing eligible students through SNAP outreach will help schools adopt and sustain this provision. And further guidance around SNAP outreach and resources are currently being developed by NYSED. As that process unfolds, we'll provide updates on what this will look like on the ground. But just to tie it all together one more time, each of these requirements is critical to the long-term sustainability of universal meals in New York State. By maximizing those federal dollars being drawn down from the reimbursable meals served, the goal is for schools to offset the cost to the state, and it will safeguard the program's longevity. Next slide. So it is really exciting to see that the state education department put out guidance almost immediately after the passage of Universal to support schools with fulfilling those requirements under the new law. They actually offered a webinar last week that was packed with information, and they've outlined some really concrete action steps for schools that can be broken down in a couple of buckets. So if schools wish to participate in universal free meals, they must elect to operate the federal school meal programs. And schools need to be through that door by July 31st of this summer. And this is a pretty quick turnaround. So NYSED has additional guidance for this process on their website, and they're going to be offering a webinar next week on June 18th at 1 p.m. If you know of schools in this boat, please encourage them to take advantage of these resources. We can drop the links for that webinar and that guidance in the chat. I do want to underscore that not all schools are required to participate in the National School Lunch and School Breakfast program. This isn't part of the Universal Free School Meals law. It only applies to those schools who wish to offer universal free school meals. So the second bucket outlined by NYSED is for schools already through that federal meal program door. And all of these schools should take immediate action to evaluate their eligibility to operate CEP, community eligibility, and work to maximize this provision. As a reminder, CEP can be implemented in one school, a group of schools, or district-wide. And we know that the majority of eligible schools in New York are already participating in CEP, but this is just a reminder that the law states that all eligible schools must participate in that provision. So, current CEP schools, if your cycle is ending, you will need to reapply. And if your identified student percentage based on April 1, 2025 enrollment has increased, you'll also need to reapply for CEP. Just a quick refresher, your identified student percentage, or ISP, includes kids who are automatically certified for free school meals without an application. So those groups that I outlined on the previous slide. We have some good news on the CEP application front. Earlier this week, NYSED announced that they received approval to extend the deadline to apply for CEP to August 31st, 2025. So just want to give another really big shout out to their team for looking ahead and getting schools some additional flexibility going into this first year of universal meals in New York. But that said, schools in this CEP boat should still take action sooner rather than later. And lastly, all schools not eligible for CEP must apply to operate Provision 2 and be approved by NYSED in order to participate in the Universal Meals Program for the 25-26 school year. To learn more about Provision 2 and get additional information about these action steps, you can check out some resources featured on the NYSED website, and they're also linked on this slide. We can drop those links in the chat. We really encourage schools in this Provision 2 boat to be in touch with NYSED and your child nutrition representative. They are trained up and ready to support schools on this front. Especially if your district has a specific question, the best method is to reach out to state ed. Our team is happy to be a sounding board for you, but the most effective route for support is going to be through state ed. Since we've got a lot to cover today, I'm not going to go further in depth, but please, again, know that NYSED is a resource. At this point, I'm going to hand the reins over to my colleague, Kayla, who will be introducing our guest speaker for today, Rachel Viens of the Syracuse City School District. And for schools just dipping their toes into the waters of offering free meals to all students, Rachel's district has been doing exemplary work, maximizing free meals for all for many years, while also expanding access to other child nutrition programs that we're going to be discussing today. And we're just so excited for her to offer a preview of what your child nutrition programming can look like with this investment long term. So take it away, Kayla.
Thanks so much, Francesca. As mentioned, my name is Kayla Snyder. I am the CACFP Outreach and Engagement Specialist here at Hunger Solutions New York. I'm happy to introduce you all to Rachel from Syracuse City School District. She is responsible for operating the USDA child nutrition programs, including the National School Lunch Program, the School Breakfast Program, the Summer Food Service Provision, as well as the at-risk after-school meal component of the child and adult care food program. In addition to her role managing all those programs, Rachel is also a CACFP ambassador with Hunger Solutions New York. So she works alongside to really spread awareness and offer peer-to-peer resources and mentorship about operating this program. So in addition to some of the things that we'll share with you today, Rachel is also a resource to you. So Rachel, we've got a couple of questions for you. Can you
Thank you so
share?
much for having me, Kayla, and thank you to Hunger Solutions. This is a great opportunity, and I hope I can share some great information to help folks on board with CEP or Provision 2 if they're new to this space.
Thanks so much. Can you share a little bit more about what the food service program looks like at Syracuse?
Absolutely. Syracuse is a mid-sized city. It's not very small and it's not very large, but we are good enough size. About 20,000 students are enrolled in the Syracuse City School District. We are a high poverty district and we have over 80 plus home languages spoken in Syracuse. So there's quite a bit of diversity from all over the world. It's really an amazing and exciting place to work because the opportunities for impact are significant and quite large. And that's kind of why we started to engage with multiple programs and look at some innovative ways to incorporate the federal and state programs to expand opportunity and access for food for our students. So we've been operating CEP for quite a while. We actually started in 2012, 2013, and it wasn't called CEP at the time. It was called Community Eligibility Option, and it allowed us to operate this program. It transferred into a new thing. It was called Community CEO, and it became CEP, and we've been operating it ever since.
Thanks so much, Rachel. So, what are some ways that your district is maximizing the reach of universal school meals? We can start first with maybe school breakfast programming. We know that that is historically underutilized.
Absolutely. So, and we've played a lot with school breakfast programming. I'll share with you a little bit about the things that we've done in the past that have been, epic failures and some things that have been really great and have been where we've landed. We started off with school breakfast looking like the traditional school breakfast. You'd come into your building and you'd usher the children through the cafeteria. You'd have a food service worker here and they'd be scanning kids in or serving meals. And it seems like that would naturally be a great solution, but I don't know about everybody else. Our cafeterias are all over the place. They might be in the basement. They might be kind of stuck into a homeroom, or a old home ec room, or what they call family child. I don't even know what they call it anymore. But we've had a lot of infrastructure that made the cafeteria space hard to reach. And when children come off the bus, let's say the bus is late, or perhaps the buses are coming in, not in their proper staggered positions that they're supposed to be in. Kids might be an influx of hundreds of children into a school building at once. How do you immediately capture that population and give them a service? And that's why we ended up taking our breakfast program, moving it out of the cafeteria and we did do breakfast in the classroom. I know folks probably have heard of this as well, but where we landed was to do breakfast off the bus and we do a grab and go model. The reason why that works so well for Syracuse City School District is because we're not pre-packing individual bags and sending them into classrooms for teachers to log and check off and give to students a reimbursable meal, which sometimes a teacher might do a great job at that, and other times you might have a sub that's coming into a classroom, engaging with the children, and some of the regulations that you have to oblige by is every child needs to be tied to a meal when you're serving a reimbursable meal, so you get reimbursement. So how do you really make sure that all the teachers, all the staff, everybody in the building understands that a fruit and a milk must be offered with the grain, and doing that with fidelity can be a little tricky, especially when somebody might call in sick or you have a substitute show up in lieu of your regular teaching staff that you partner with. So breakfast in the classroom, what I kind of just described and some of the barriers to it, although it is amazing, in that application we do use in some ways and capacities as a whole for a large school district, we've had the best success with breakfast off the bus grab and go model. And how we've worked this is that we'll have a Monday and a Friday be a hot breakfast item. And we have our menu structured so that we unitize the reimbursable meal a child gets off the bus, they'll grab the universal meal that includes your milk, your fruit, and a juice. You have your two components of fruit and a milk, which makes it reimbursable. On the side, so the kids have option, they can grab a hot homemade sandwich, a breakfast sandwich, or a unitized waffle unit, or unitized pancakes, and they grab that and go. So now they have this comprehensive hot breakfast meal that they go into their classroom, into their homeroom, wherever they're going to be, and they eat it then and there. It's less cleanup for the custodial staff, it's less transportation, and our staff is controlling the reimbursable meal off of a cart at entry, point of entry. So it's worked really well for us. On the non-hot days, we do a more simple version. I mentioned that we have hot days on Monday and Friday. We do that because on Mondays the kids are just coming back. It is something you have to be concerned about with food safety. Make sure that you're doing this really quick. But on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we unitize the whole breakfast and we give those out with extra servings on the side of cold items, extra milk, extra fruit. When you design your breakfast menu, if you design it for a breakfast off the bus model, you're going to find some self-imposed restrictions for what makes it reimbursable with a unitized meal that will actually help you with program fidelity. And for us, it works fabulous. Kids get off the bus, they grab their bag. If they want something extra, an extra piece of hand fruit or an extra milk or whatever it is, they grab it, they go, they eat, and we're able to do a count right then and there, how many kids were served, and our staff are trained to make sure that happens with fidelity. So that's our breakfast program, and I would say that we do have breakfast in the classroom, like I mentioned, but it was district wide. We did that and we scaled it down to be able to figure out what the best model was and really worked and massaged our menu so that we were doing it in a way that was going to capture the most kids in the most efficient way and get the children fed in the morning.
Thanks, Rachel. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. We're going to shift to out of school time programs for a moment. Can you share a little bit more about what after school meals and summer meals look like in your district?
This year we're gearing up to have, we've had 23 sites that were supper program. I might have already mentioned, or maybe I didn't, I apologize. There's about 32 or 34 school buildings. We have some buildings closing, so I apologize. That might seem odd. I don't know my numbers, but we do have some buildings closing this year. So the total number of supper programs that we have been offering this past year is 23 buildings. Some of those buildings are after school sites, and we're complementing their services by providing CACFP supper programming at those sites. In the other buildings where they're doing after school program, we are offering snack program instead of supper. And we do that based on need and also time of service. Some of our schools have an after school program that starts up actually kind of like they have late lunches, so the population isn't really demanding a meal service. We want to give them something, so snack is appropriate for that. And there's only 5 of those school building locations. For the summer, we're gearing up. We have about 43 sites, and those are in our summer school sites. They're in parks programs, they're in libraries, they're all over the community. We have an amazing staff, and they sit down, we look at a map, and we try to figure out where the pockets of food insecurity might be or where children might be congregating so we can offer summer offering to them. But with supper, I usually hear a lot about how do you do that? What does it look like? And for us, I'll share, like I did with breakfast, how we migrated through these different ideas and different models. Where we land with supper, which has been the most successful and the most efficient and the best product and service, is to do a hybrid supper meal. And what it is it is a cold service that is unitized as a reimbursable meal on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So that after school program staff come in, they grab the units, they actually do the attendance roster and the meal selection. Check, check, check. They take the meals, they leave the chart with us so that the next morning we can roster those in, have meal accountability. And we know it was a reimbursable meal because it was unitized. They couldn't tear that apart and take just one. The child got a full reimbursable supper program meal on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But we don't always, you can't do that with hot food because we're not going to have other staff in our building, working on a title, operating an oven. So On Tuesday and Thursday, we mix it up. We have the kids all come through the cafeteria line for supper service, and they get a hot meal that's very traditionally served in a way that's on a tray. The children get scanned in, and then they leave and they sit down and they have a little bit different meal service. The last supper program service I'm going to chat through, we have them offer the same thing, hybrid menu, cold days, hot days. Sometimes staff's there on hot days, or they're there on hot days and not there on cold days. It's unitized, more grab and go model. It's with the athletic programs. We work very closely with our athletic director, and we have on game days, we know when game days are and we know when they aren't, and on practice days, we know their schedule, and we will have the same meal service stationed in a building for kids to have homework help done and a meal served during homework help when they're waiting for practice to start. And it gives them the extra nourishment that they need to be able to perform better. You know, we're talking about student athletes and they need extra nourishment. So we've really expanded service for supper to be K-12, and it's been an exciting adventure.
Thanks so much. What a robust after school meal programming you have at Syracuse. Anything else that you wanted to share about summer meals before we go to the next question?
Yeah, I want to just say that in the past, we've had some amazing opportunities to promote summer meals that we're going to be elevated beyond. I'm in summer program and now I'm eating. We've done and we're doing it again. Barbecues. If you have a way to do something kind of fun and exciting and maybe pair that with some really blasted loud media promotion, whether it's a big press event or whether it's a robocall, you highlight those specific initiatives at your different sites, and it does draw attention. If folks come once, they're going to ask questions like, how often do you do this? When is this happening? I can get free food. My kids are here to do that. We've done that. We've had amazing reception. It's been surrounded by barbecues in parks, media promotion, and you bring in some other partners to support the population that comes, and you have an amazing opportunity to reach folks in a way they normally wouldn't. We have NOEP coordinators to help onboard people for SNAP at those locations during those events. And we've had some other really fun things happen with the Syracuse City Parks and Rec program where they'll bring like a mobile rec cart, rec units, and they'll bring staff to entertain and engage the children in physical activity opportunities so that when they're there, they're eating, they're being physically active, and they're also increasing access opportunities in education for things like SNAP.
Thanks so much, Rachel. So you just talked a little bit about the NOEP coordinator in your area, the Nutrition Outreach and Education Program. Can you talk about some additional ways that you're supporting SNAP outreach to eligible families in your district?
Absolutely. And I just want to say, Francesca did a phenomenal job laying the groundwork for SNAP and what it is and how it works and all those different interconnections with, direct certification matching process. When a school has identified one child as being on SNAP and they're direct certifying, whether it's SNAP or Medicaid, the school gets additional Title I funding. So it behooves us all not to really make a concerted effort to really try to increase SNAP enrollment. What we've done on the school nutrition world in our department is every time we collect a meal application for household eligibility, if we see someone is not on any SNAP or Medicaid and they're not direct certifying, we'll dig into that application and find out maybe they should be because they're eligible by income. And then we will do a direct reach out. We have a staff member here who takes it one extra step further. We do the eligibility and we do that with our applications, and then they will say, this is a pilot, we think they're eligible, I'm going to give them a buzz, and they will directly call they will directly call our family, engage with them, and say something along this line. It's very scripted so that it's very equitable across the board between family members. We see that you filled out this application. We think you might be eligible for additional services. Have you heard of the SNAP program? Could we give you a referral to our outside agency who directly can onboard you if you're eligible? And we have heard over and over again folks say, yes, why not? It really is powerful to do SNAP engagement and outreach with school personnel from the families. The whole point of SNAP is that we're trying to alleviate the impact of poverty by giving folks, money in their pocket to buy food. And even if it's just $25 a month, which we would hope, maybe that could be increased in the future with advocacy, but the truth is SNAP is an amazing lever to help folks in poverty. And we want to do whatever we can to directly link people to those additional resources.
Thanks so much for sharing. Yeah, SNAP is a really big driver behind a lot of the work that we are doing. So I really appreciate you taking a minute to talk a little bit more about that. We will have some time at the end for Q&A, so if any folks have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and pivot and talk a little bit about after school meals. So after school meals, for folks on the call, some folks might not be familiar with after school meals. After school meals is a component of the Child and Adult Care Food Program. Cody, next slide, please. So after school meals is administered by the New York State Department of Health. It reimburses for healthy food served to kids and teens in eligible after school programs. It is very underutilized in New York and across the nation. In October 2023, about 5 children participated in a supper program per 100 children who were receiving a free or reduced price school lunch. Next slide, please. And we know after school meals through CACFP can help with a lot of the similar things that school meals help with, right? It can help reduce that food insecurity. It can help improve those learning outcomes. And it can help increase attendance in after school enrichment programming. If kids know that they're going to be able to get a hot meal after school or a meal after school, that might, be the deciding factor in attending some homework help or another activity after school. It also supports families, right? Parents and caregivers know that if their student is staying after school for some homework help or maybe athletics, they're able to get that extra nutrition support. And then for schools, it provides a sustainable revenue and improved financial viability for your programming. Folks who are able to serve a complete after-school meal through CACFP will receive about 4 times the reimbursement than they would if they're just serving a snack after school through NSLP. Next slide, please. So there are some eligibility criteria that the programs will need to meet. So schools will need to provide non-residential care for children after school during the regular school year. And then in order to qualify for after school meals, there needs to be at least one educational or enrichment activity. It can be something like homework help or a STEM club, or really the possibilities are endless with what sort of enrichment programming you can tack onto the meal offering. Programs must be public or nonprofit, and they must be located in an eligible low-income area where 50% or more of the students are qualifying for free or reduced price meals. And so I want to take a minute just to highlight that, we've heard a lot about the expansion of school meals over the last year. And just because you're able to offer free school meals to all students, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will be eligible for the after school meal program. You're going to need to go and look at your individual building level data, and you'll have to look at your ISP number. So it needs to be, I believe, 31.25 is what the minimum will need to be for a building. Next slide, please. And then we know, like NSLP, CACFP after school meals also needs to follow a meal pattern. CACFP has a specific meal pattern guidelines, but school food authorities are able to utilize the NSLP meal pattern. I will note that if you do decide to use the NSLP meal pattern, sort of the biggest difference is the whole grain enrichment requirement. So the meal that is being served after school will require a whole grain component. We have sample menus and more available on our webpage. The New York State Department of Health is an excellent resource if you're looking for different creditable foods, and your peers also as well. Next slide, please. And so really quickly, after school meals, they may be served on weekends, breaks, and holidays if there is an enrichment component taking place during that time. We heard from Rachel about how They have a hybrid offering. So sometimes kids come to the cafeteria, and other days they work with program staff to get the meals to kids in their programs. So this program is really able to be tailored to your needs and your resources as well. And then also, Rachel had mentioned if you are looking to expand after school meals to students in athletic programs, this does offer a way to do that. And currently, the reimbursement for after school meals is $4.43, and that gets updated every July 1. So an update to that reimbursement should be coming soon, and you'll be able to find all of this information on our webpage and in the follow-up resources we share with you as well. I think that is it for me, and I'm going to kick it over. Oh, last steps. If you are interested in applying for after school meals, you can visit afterschoolmealsny.org or connect with us. We're happy to connect with you one-on-one, help refer you to the Department of Health if necessary, and sort of chat through what CACFP after school meals might look like in your building.
Thanks so much, Kayla. Okay, so my name is Cody Bloomfield. I'm the summer nutrition specialist at Hunger Solutions New York, and I work on both summer meals and summer EBT. As a school, you are likely already operating federal nutrition programs, serving school meals, and for some of you, after school meals or snacks, and you're therefore well positioned to also serve summer meals. Rachel talked a lot about this in her piece, so I'll be referencing it throughout. As you are aware, summer can be an especially food insecure time for students. Summertime gives a perception of fun and vacation, but for many kids, there are big nutritional gaps that need to be filled. And we just really want to thank you too for your critical work in bridging these gaps. Okay, so the Summer Food Service Program, its technical name, we often call it summer meals around here, provides meals and snacks for kids and teens during the summer months. I'm a visual person, so I really appreciate this graphic to the right of the slide, which shows how the program is administered at the federal level by USDA. Below that, the state level, the State Education Department, or NYSED. Below that, sponsors, which are responsible for the fiscal and administrative duties, including meal preparation, acquisition, and then sites underneath those, nested underneath the sponsors, which act as the locations for the meals to be served or distributed. School districts are well positioned to function as sponsors as they are familiar with providing school and after school meals and everything that entails, adhering to food safety protocol, scaling, menu planning, etc. And libraries, public pools, and parks are all examples of sites a school district might partner with. The sites offer a safe and welcoming location for kids to eat meals. And there are different kinds of sites, but today we'll mostly be talking about open sites where any kid or teen 18 and under can access a meal. Excuse me. So to serve meals as an open site where any kid or teen can access a meal, a site must be located in an eligible low-income area. And this means that 50% or more of the area's children qualify for free or reduced price school meals. Kayla was touching on this a little bit as well. In CEP schools that serve free meals to all enrolled students, an ISP of 31.25% is needed in order to meet that 50% free or reduced price threshold for summer meals. So just to explain that a little bit further, the ISP multiplier is 1.6. So 31.25% times that 1.6 multiplier gets you to that 50% threshold. So there are two mechanisms for establishing eligibility, one using census data or two using school data, and the links provided on the slide, which again, you will get as a follow-up resource, can take you to those respective tools, but please just know that we're always here to help you determine your eligibility as well. I did want to say that the sponsor deadlines have passed for summer 2025. They are typically May 1st for new sponsor applications and June 1st for returning sponsor renewals. But mark your calendars if you're interested in participating in summer 2026. I know from my conversations with schools that a great deal of summer meals planning happens annually in December or even January, so it's never too early to start thinking about serving summer meals. Other requirements include attending NYSED's mandatory trainings, serving the meals themselves in safe and sanitary conditions, and ensuring that meals are eaten on site in a congregate manner unless your site has been approved as a rural non-congregate site, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. Okay, so as I've mentioned, summer meals provide a critical source of nutrition while school's out of session. But we also know that only 1 in 4 kids that are eligible for free or reduced price lunches ate a summer lunch in 2023. I'll just repeat that stat. So only 1 in 4 kids eligible for free or reduced price lunches ate a summer lunch in 2023. So we have room for growth here. In rural areas where transportation and other barriers exist, access is even lower. So in the next slide, I'll be focusing on expanding the reach of summer meals by taking advantage of program flexibilities. Okay, so I was talking a little bit earlier about the congregate requirement where kids are required to eat together on site at most summer meal sites. But a newer flexibility allows for grab and go or home delivered meals in eligible rural areas when and where in-person meal service isn't available. So rural non-congregate meal service became a permanent option within the summer food service program in summer of 2023. And we saw limited use of the new site type in New York State in 2023, with only around 13 total non-congregate sites. But in 2024, that site type jumped to around 76 total sites across the state. And we expect to see even greater uptake of this new option in summer 2025. So I'm excited to see numbers as sites information becomes available in late June. I do want to make it clear that sponsors must apply and then receive approval to take advantage of this new permanent flexibility. And just to give you an example of what this might look like, a version of an improved rural non-congregate site could be a school delivering summer meals to a specific number of students who qualify for free school meals. So that's just one example to get you thinking about what this might look like for you in your school. So on to summer EBT, very exciting new program. I want to be transparent and say right off the bat that summer EBT is nuanced, but now that we're in year 2 of the program, we've really tried to work to nail down what we do know about how summer EBT works in New York State. So families receive a one-time benefit of $120 for each eligible child on an electronic benefit card to purchase food. And this one-time benefit of $120 is for the entire summer. Most eligible children will receive benefits automatically, a large percentage of them, but some will need to apply. Children who will be receiving benefits automatically will receive notifications in the form of letters, texts, and emails from OTDA, who's the administering summer EBT agency. And we also want to make it really clear that children can use both summer meals and summer EBT. It's not either or. So when you share information about summer meal sites with your families, I really encourage you to promote summer EBT at the same time. We'll be going over some outreach resources shortly to help you do just that. And we just want to make sure that families are aware of both ways to access food for their children during the summer months. And lastly, I'll just say that immigration status does not affect eligibility for summer EBT. So I've linked some resources on the right side of the slide. These are directly from OTDA. First up is the summer EBT webinar recording from OTDA's presentation that happened earlier this week. It's about an hour long and features a really in-depth presentation on what to expect in 2025 for this program. And secondly, OTDA created a really helpful FAQ page or frequently asked question page for this summer that's available on their summer EBT webpage. It's a great resource to help you answer questions if you're getting some and or just to direct families to. Okay, so each child, there's more summer EBT basics, here we go. Each child will receive summer EBT benefits on their own card. In some cases, benefits will be issued on existing pandemic EBT cards, but benefits will not be issued on SNAP cards. They will not be issued on SNAP cards. Benefits should be used as soon as possible as they expire 122 days after being issued. This is clearly much faster than SNAP benefits for those of you familiar with the program. So we've really been encouraging families that receive both to use summer EBT benefits first and quickly. And on that note, anyone who's getting summer EBT benefits, just use them quickly. And families should also keep their cards from year to year. So there's been rampant skimming issues across New York State and across the country. So we really want to draw attention to a new feature that's available for EBT cards to help improve security. So it's available for both summer EBT and SNAP cards. So therefore, a great resource to share with your families. We want to help OTDA spread the word about this new feature, and the link features a one-pager that just explains how to use it. Okay, so here we are to our action steps. Our goal here is to connect more kids with summer nutrition programs, since we know that summer break can significantly increase childhood hunger. As trusted messengers with already established effective channels of communication to families, you really play a critical role in helping to spread the word about these programs. So linked on this slide are outreach materials for summer EBT from OTDA, summer meals outreach materials from NYSED, the State Education Department, and then lastly, blended materials from us. And when I say blended, I mean that our materials feature info on both summer meals and summer EBT. And there's a flyer, which is featured to the right of the page. You can see that it has just a quick blurb about both programs. And then we also have a toolkit, which I'm very excited about because it has sample language that you can plug into your newsletters, post on social media, or add to your web pages. So we just want to make the lift on your end really light. You can just copy, paste, plug and play. NYSED's outreach materials, as well as our own point2summermealsny.org, where families can find summer meal sites nearby. But I said this earlier, I just want to say it again. Please note that site data isn't available for these summer meal sites until late June. So at this time, if you go to the webpage, you won't find any sites populated on the mapper. So a lot of folks wait to push out some of this information until just a little bit later in June, just so it's not confusing for families. And then lastly, my last action step here is to continue to co-promote these programs. Whenever you're talking about summer EBT, mention summer meals, and then vice versa. Because we, again, want to let families know that both of these programs work together, they can be utilized together. And we're especially excited about those blended outreach materials that I mentioned, since they help you do just that. And now I will hand it back to Francesca. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cody. Really appreciate that. And yeah, next up, we're going to talk about school breakfast. I just want to say Rachel did such a great job covering this point at the top of the call. So I am going to breeze through this section so we can get to all the content we still have. I think the main takeaway here is that with universal meals on the horizon, there's a renewed opportunity for schools to be improving access for school breakfast because this program is historically underutilized. Next slide, please. This slide is really just getting at the idea that there is a real gap between school breakfast and lunch participation. We know that when breakfast is free to all students, participation goes up. And this progress is happening here in New York, and it's something to celebrate, but additional work is needed to make up the ground compared to school lunch participation. And we see that in the figure here on the right. Research shows that even when meals are served free to all, students are harder to reach without a designated period to eat, just because of barriers like late buses or situations where kids aren't allowed inside before the bell rings. And that this can keep kids from accessing the morning meal during traditional school breakfast. Next slide, please. So one of the ways that schools can improve access and participation is by serving breakfast as part of the school day. And Rachel really nailed down on this earlier. This approach is commonly referred to as breakfast after the bell. Many of you are likely familiar with BAB or already operating the program in some capacity. So I'll just say, simply put, breakfast after the bell, it's about changing the service model for how kids are getting meals. There's really no one size fits all. We've got some common examples of what these models look like illustrated on the slide. You can have kids eating in the classroom during the first few minutes of class. You can take, kids can be taking breakfast grab and go, or going through that regular cafeteria service line, but extended after the start of the day. And this even isn't an exhaustive list. Schools can combine models in a way that works best for them, like grab and go breakfast off the bus that Rachel is operating at Syracuse City School District. But the main idea is that each of these service options help meet students where they are and ensure more time to eat. I will say that research shows breakfast in the classroom does yield the highest participation rates out of the model. So if you're looking for a place to start, that's a good way to go. And I just want to say that with universal meals coming this fall, breakfast is really low-hanging fruit. All schools can maximize by extending service after the start of the school day. And we especially encourage schools to take action if you've got a few years of offering free meals for all under your belt. Next slide, please. Just some top line action steps to help keep up the momentum for expanding access to breakfast. Everyone can encourage kids to eat breakfast at school and spread the word about its availability. Schools specifically can work towards making breakfast more accessible with strategies like BAB. And this approach can be incremental. We encourage districts to start out by piloting in one school or even on a certain day of the week. And lastly, know that our team can connect you with peers already operating BAB, as well as other strategies and resources. One resource I'll highlight today is our recent Breakfast in the Classroom webinar featuring a Q&A with the NICED team. The focus of that conversation was on strengthening accountability, which is something that Rachel, again, alluded to so beautifully in what she shared earlier. It's super important. We know this is top of mind for schools, and so we can throw that link in the chat too for that recording. Just know that you've got support on breakfast, not only from Hunger Solutions New York, but certainly NICED's Child Nutrition Team and other partners like No Kid Hungry New York are a phenomenal resource. Next slide, please. So far, we've covered why schools are well positioned as partners for outreach to families about the federal nutrition programs, including SNAP. And we've talked about how SNAP participation is now a requirement under Universal, under that law. And so in this next section, I want to spend some time building on why SNAP outreach is such a win-win effort for schools and families. Next slide, please. So under the Universal Meals Program, we are no longer linking access to school meals with a student's free and reduced price eligibility status, but it still matters that we connect eligible families to nutrition assistance through SNAP. Doing so simplifies how school meal operations run on the back end. Schools operating the Universal Meals Program will still need to collect income information from families for purposes outside of the school meal program, like being able to receive resources for classrooms or technology or other state or federal funding. More students participating in SNAP means more students automatically designated as free eligible. And this is really important because now these families will be captured through the data matching process that we talked about earlier, direct certification, rather than through filling out income forms. So this means less paperwork for schools to process. I really want to drive home this point that if you operate universal meals, whether you're in a CEP school collecting alternative income forms for purposes outside the meal program or a new Provision 2 school working to establish your base year, you will want more families coming in through SNAP. When more eligible kids participate in SNAP, it reduces that administrative burden to establish economic need. And there are a lot of families that can be automatically data matched through SNAP instead of needing to be captured through filling out and processing paperwork. And that's why SNAP outreach is so critical and now a requirement under the Universal Meals Law. And the second point that I want to make is that increasing SNAP participation also strengthens the financial viability of school meal programs. Under the Universal Meals model here in New York, we are shifting the focus away from individual kid eligibility for free meals, and instead we're focusing on school eligibility for federal provisions like CEP. The way that New York is rolling out this universal program here in our state is through provision participation. And that means that schools need to be able to capture those students participating in SNAP in order to designate the reimbursement structure for these programs. And that goes for both CEP and Provision 2 schools. More kids automatically in that free category draws down more federal dollars and offsets the cost to the state. And doing so supports the longevity of the Universal Meal Program. Next slide, please. We know more guidance is coming down the pike from state ed regarding what SNAP outreach will look like on the ground, but you can still get a jump start now. There is never a wrong time to do SNAP outreach. As schools, you know your family's best and you are well positioned for this outreach. You know which families are low income through direct cert, which families get additional services at school or need summer meals. And you can set yourself up for success in the coming year by making sure these families get information about SNAP. And this really, what that outreach looks like depends on your school and what you already have in place communication-wise. So whether it's your guidance office or summer meals outreach, for example, we encourage you to just tap SNAP outreach onto what you're already sending families. Especially this time of year, a lot of schools distributing information about community resources over the summer months, like Book Bus or summer enrichment. So this is really low-hanging fruit to pair with SNAP outreach. And State Ed actually recently presented on that webinar that I was talking about from last week, and they outlined how families can apply for SNAP pulled that information into this slide for you here. Families can apply for SNAP online at mybenefits.newyork.gov or with a paper application through the Department of Social Services, and they can access the application assistance at snaphelpnewyork.org. This is a really great segue to turn things over to my colleague, Dan, who supports schools one-on-one with SNAP outreach, and he's going to tell you more about existing resources we have available. Next slide, please.
Thanks so much, Francesca. Yeah, I'm so great to be here. My name's Dan Von Cherubin, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager at Hunger Solutions New York, and I work with schools and districts across New York State to maximize their SNAP outreach efforts. To support schools, our team has developed a statewide SNAP outreach toolkit for schools. We'll drop in the chat right now. We know that school administrators and staff need quick, easy-to-use solutions, so the toolkit is designed to plug directly into your existing communication channels to provide information about SNAP and its benefits to families, refer families to Hunger Solution New York's online SNAP eligibility pre-screening tool, refer families to online SNAP application for New York, and also connect families to their local SNAP outreach organization for one-on-one assistance. The toolkit is housed on our website and includes a suite of resources, such as flyers for families with the QR code that directs families to the SNAP eligibility pre-screening tool, graphics and sample language for social media and other school communications. All of our materials, are free and available in both English and Spanish. We also outline some strategies for how schools can use this toolkit. Schools can use the toolkit's sample language about SNAP in places where families are already receiving important information, like the district website, newsletters, social media, school-based apps, or even the cafeteria menu. We've also seen schools that have main office and guidance center staff keep SNAP outreach info on hand to provide to parents and guardians. Schools can also use existing processes or systems to spread the word to families. Some examples we've seen include bundling the information with back to school and/or end of school year packets or events. We have had schools send a letter to families from the superintendent or principals. Other low-hanging fruit to consider are sending materials home with students utilizing school-based food pantries or backpack programs. Next slide, please. To promote our toolkit, our communications team created a two-sided palm card with scannable QR code that directs you to the toolkit homepage, where you can download any and all of the toolkit resources. Anyone who'd like to learn more about the toolkit, learn more about our SNAP eligibility pre-screening tool, or discuss outreach strategies can contact me for one-on-one support. My info is at the end of the slide deck, which will be shared with all the attendees. So thank you so much for having me, and I'll pass it back to Francesca to take us through some big picture items.
Thanks so much, Dan. Next slide, please. So after discussing individual child nutrition programs, we wanted to come back and offer a bigger picture in terms of how these programs are affected by increased SNAP participation. I know I'm a really visual person, so seeing it represented this way is helpful. As you can see, SNAP outreach leads to more families participating in SNAP, and greater SNAP participation leads to expanded access to summer meals and more students automatically receiving summer EBT. On the school meals front, greater SNAP participation translates to the long-term sustainability of the Universal Meals Program in New York, while also lessening the administrative burden on schools. And lastly, increasing SNAP participation makes it easier for families with young children to sign up for WIC, which I know we didn't get the chance to talk about that program too much, but there is information on our website. Families can also get other benefits like fee waivers for college applications or admissions tests, discounts on instruments, and so much more. And so the bottom line here is that in a world where families have to submit multiple requests for multiple services, connecting families to SNAP is an opportunity to streamline accessibility to nutrition support. Next slide. So we are running a little bit long today, and we really appreciate everybody's patience with that. I think, for those of you who need to jump off, please know that this webinar is being recorded and will be distributed to everybody who registered. I think we'll leave about 5 minutes now for any questions from the audience, and then we'll wrap up just like with our contact information. So at this point, feel free to enter questions or comments in the chat or unmute yourself, and we'll try and go for a couple more minutes here. Just give people a second to think about those questions, and we'll look in chat to see if anything came through. I know there was a lot to cover today, and some people, oh, I think somebody asked something in the chat. Okay. Quick question about household income applications from Samantha. Where do these get entered? Into our POS systems? We had a bit of confusion about this last year. So household applications are not going to be linked to your POS system. Like those are going to be administered like separately, not through the school meal program. So I'm trying to think about how to answer this question.
And I can chime in here too,
Yeah.
Francesca, if that's helpful. I think your
Yeah,
answer is
thank you.
exactly right, that because the household income applications are outside of the school meal programs, those are usually handled separately. Sometimes your school, sometimes your program may be processing those for your school, but your school needs to be paying for that separately outside of your child nutrition program. So I think it's important to kind of establish your process locally, like within your school district, and make sure that the business office is getting the information that they need and making sure that it's separate from your child nutrition program. If you're operating, I see household income form, and I'm assuming you're operating child community eligibility provision. So that's what creates kind of some of that, where you need to create a separation from your program and those household income forms. But happy to talk more offline later if that's helpful to talk more about your individual situation. Awesome.
I think we'll give it another minute or so, and then we will wrap up.
There was a question earlier about during after school meals and summer meals about eligibility, and I just wanted to sort of revisit that because there is that additional eligibility criteria for after school meals and for summer meals. I think Cody explained it really nicely. You're going to have to go and look at like the individual building data to look at the ISP for that particular building to determine eligibility for after school or summer meals. But as Francesca mentioned, we are here as a resource to you all, and we're always happy to connect on offline if you have additional questions about eligibility.
All right, I think things are winding down a little bit now. So I think we're going to skip ahead to the next slide and know that this presentation is not the only bite out of the apple. Our team remains here as a resource to you. So if you think of more questions offline, our contact information is listed here, and we are happy to help with any and all the content shared. Rachel also has kindly offered to share her contact information, and that's listed here on the slide. There really is no wrong door. Our website is also here, and we encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on resources, webinars, and more. And that just about wraps it up for us and the content that we prepared today. And just want to thank you all so much for your time, especially with running a couple minutes long. And just also for what you do as schools and program operators for students and families. And just wishing you a wonderful day and a wonderful summer. It's just around the corner. Thanks all.